Good morning. Nice to be with you all who are here. And I will also put in a welcome to whoever watches this later. I've said this before and I'll say it again. It's really sweet that we have a way to stay connected, particularly as the new stay-at-home has come into effect for Charlotte. I have to say it doesn't really change anything that we're already doing here, but it's an impact on our community. So it's very, very sweet that we can still connect. Glad you're here. So this is our Wednesday morning community drop-in group. Typically we would be at Plaza Midwood, sitting in a circle together in the Midwood Center, and our circle now is just spread out over our community. I just want to put a quick reminder that we have other live stream offerings, trying to do them all weekdays. Tomorrow at 5:30 will be Jude Johnson, and Friday morning at 8 a.m. I'll do a very short morning sit and short sharing. So hope you can join us for any of this. If you would like to help support Charlotte Center for Mindfulness in growing these resources for our community, feel free to donate on our website. All of these live streams are freely offered, and at whatever level that you participate, we feel that that is us together sharing our mission of learning to center in mindfulness in this world. So before we sit, I'm going to give a little outline of how this morning's going to go. I'm going to give a very short story to kind of frame us for sitting this morning. Then this morning's sit is about a 25-minute sit, light guidance, and a real chance to deepen in practice. After that, I have a longer sharing to give, and then whoever wants to join me over on the Zoom room later, at the end, I'll post the link for the Zoom room in the chat box, and anyone that wants to come over there and join in would love to have you. If we get cut off for any reason, as happened last night, don't worry. I now know how to reconnect and come back. So just give me a little bit of time and I will get us going up again. So to start with the story, I've shared this story before. It's one that resonates very deeply with my personal practice. So I think it's worth sharing right now as it has a lot of relevance. So if you've heard it before, I invite you to hear it as if you haven't, or just ask, what does it mean personally for you? Where does this story have some relevance for you? This story comes from Tara Brach. She shares that one time she was leading a very large retreat and was told that there would be a man with early onset Alzheimer's who was participating in the retreat, and he would have his wife with him to help him. So she kind of had her eyes open to watch out for him and picked him out in the crowd and was struck by the way he was moving through the retreat. So when he asked to have an interview with her, she said, yes, definitely. He came, and before he asked any questions, she said, can I just ask a question first? And she said something to the extent of, what gives? here you have early onset Alzheimer's, and I'm just watching the way you're moving with this. I'm so deeply struck. What gives? How are you doing this? He said to her, it's just that I don't see it as a problem. It's hard sometimes, really hard, but not a problem. It's like the leaves falling off the trees in the fall. And then he went on and shared with her a story that had happened to him recently. He had been invited to give a talk to a group of people. And when he was in the process of walking in front of the crowd, in front of the group, up to the podium, he had a moment where he forgot what he was supposed to talk about. He forgot why he was there. He forgot who he was. The one thing he obviously didn't forget, he didn't say this, but clearly true, he didn't forget his years of practice. He had been a psychologist and a longtime mindfulness meditator. And what came to him was his practice in that moment. So he found himself standing in front of this group of people, and he put his hands in front of his heart. And he simply started naming what was present for him in this moment now. Something like scared, and then he bowed. Anxious, bow. Heart racing, bow. Confused, bow. And he kept doing that until he found himself starting to name, breathing, bow, settling, bow, calming, bow, present, bow. Once he got to that place, he looked out at the people he was standing in front of and he said, I'm sorry. I don't actually remember why I'm here or what I'm supposed to tell you about. A woman in the front apparently looked at him and said, you're here to teach us about mindfulness, and no one has ever taught us like that before. That act of bowing to what is with a sort of rooted strength and a flexibility to meet the moment with reverence, with care, with some wisdom, with some kindness. That is a powerful means we have available to recenter, reground, reconnect moment by moment as often as we need. So I invite you for this sitting practice to carry that into your practice. Within the practice, there will be times where you are connected with wherever your meditation is. You're awake and present to that moment. And then, of course, there will be all the distractions that come up. What is it like to have respect for it all and to meet it all with that internal equivalent gesture of a grounded, respectful bow? So I just put that out there to explore for this practice period. So to begin our practice, I invite you to find whatever posture is most comfortable for you. Allowing your eyes to close if you wish. And first, just listening for the sound of the bell. using it as an invitation to this present moment now. So that same listening attention to the bell, opening up the ears, the hearing sense, to whatever sounds are around you. Use this as a means of orienting right here, this space. Any sounds inside the body, in the room, the sound of my voice, in the room around you. Whenever our nervous systems are charged, putting attention into orienting to this space, this moment, very useful. So we're using our ears to do that. If you want to open up your eyes, take a moment to look around your space so that you really let yourself feel through the eyes right where you are, right here, right now. With this orienting, turn your head. Make sure you take the time to see the doors in your room. Know the wall behind you, wherever you are. You can look up at your ceiling, down at your floor. Let your eyes feel into your presence here and now. And if it's comfortable, allowing the eyes to close or keep them open, either is just fine. Bring that same seeing and listening to whatever's here right into the body. Gravity, connecting with the earth. And you feel where your feet are in contact with the floor. Feel where your body has contact with the chair. Notice out of that lower body connection with support, floor and chair. There's a way our upper bodies naturally rise up out of this. Letting that awareness come up through the spine, the neck, all the way to the top of the head. So you might be noticing two kinds of energies and directions that are here. There is on every cell of the body this connection with gravity to the whole of the earth. Very gentle holding. You can even take a deep breath in, and on the out breath, release down into that gravity. Anything you need to let go of. down into the earth below. Then from that rootedness, there's actually this energetic lifting upward. Grows right out of the rootedness, through the spine, the neck, to the top of the head, lifting skyward. There's a nice breathing exercise that can go with that if you want to explore it. If you want to do this, you draw the breath in through the top of the head, filling the whole body on the in-breath. And then on the out-breath, release the breath out, down through the bottoms of the feet, into the floor below, down into the earth. Now, in-breath, draw in through the feet, filling the whole body up to the top of the head. Out breath, releasing from the feet all the way through the body, out through the top of the head. If that visualization is useful for you, you might explore offering a few of those breaths in and out. Another one that goes with it comes from breathing in through the front side of the body, the whole front of the body. Breathe in. Out breath, release through the back side of the body. In breath through the back. Out breath, release out the front. A couple rounds of those if you wish. Then the last one of the series, breathe in through the right side of the body, out through the left, in through the left, out through the right. And allowing the breath to settle back into its own natural rhythm. In this place of feeling the breath's aliveness in the body, use that as an anchor to check in with how things are inside this body, mind, heart for you right now. If you feel comfortable doing this, bring the awareness using the anchor of the breath to noticing the thoughts in the mind. Not getting caught up in the thoughts, but noticing that there's this possibility of a distance, a stepping back between you and the thoughts that come up. Then maybe step back one more step. And instead of bringing direct attention to the thoughts themselves, notice how the thoughts affect the body. The felt sense of the body, in the body, the charge, the tone, the direction of whatever conditions are present in the thinking mind right now. Curiosity is your friend. Be really curious. What does my current thinking conditions, how do my current thinking conditions play out in my body? Ventilating anything you meet. Wherever it feels appropriate or you feel called to explore this, what might a bow to whatever you're meeting feel like? What is that internal orientation to whatever you're meeting? Do the same thing with emotions. What kind of emotions are present? Can you give a name to whatever emotions might be here? And then noticing the difference between getting caught up in any story about any emotions to really inviting that curiosity, that willingness to meet, to see, to greet, to be with, to offer a breath, offer a bow, get to know whatever emotions might be present in your own body right now. If at any point any of these directions bring up too much, feel too intense, or the distracted mind is just pulling you somewhere else, remember a simple anchor, whatever anchor you wish. The breath, going back to listening, opening the eyes, reorienting as often as you need. Use your resources to meet this human experience moment by moment by moment. Follow your own internal wisdom to draw upon your skills for what's useful and what's helpful for you in this moment. And then from emotions, bring a simple exploration of the body. The mind typically gravitates straight to whatever's unpleasant. So take a moment if there's some place in the body that is unpleasant at this moment. Take a moment to meet this. Offer a breath. If a different anchor is useful or needed, use that with intentionality to reground, to recenter. But don't stop with the unpleasant. Again, invite that curiosity and explore in your body. Where's neutral? Where's pleasant? What does that feel like for you? What's it like to use neutral or pleasant as a refuge? It's a grounding spot. Staying there as long as it is useful to you. And I invite you to be intentional with the remaining time of this meditation. And we'll move into a silence. Pick a practice. Might be one that we've already done. Might be something else that you know would be of service. Loving kindness, compassion practice, mountain meditation, body scan, whatever. But choose some practice Remember your anchors. Remember your skills and how to meet each moment, whether distracted or settling, with respect, with a willingness to honor this human experience just as it is. This is playing out in your body, mind, and heart. So as we're getting close to finishing our sitting practice, take a moment to just feel in your heart, whatever way that plays out for you, this circle of people sitting together wherever we are. Just know that you are actually right now sitting with others, sharing this space. And know that that circle extends far larger than just those who are signed in right now on this. It's people all over the world, people choosing to take the time to reground, recenter. So allow some acknowledgement wherever that extends. And if you're watching this later, know that you are held in that larger circle. So welcome again. If you haven't noticed, there is actually a chat box. And you see Kathy, kind of sweet, your good morning, appreciate that. In just a moment, I'm going to ask that anyone who wants to share gratitudes, you can put it in the chat box. Having done this a couple of times now, I recognize that there is a delay between you putting it in and me seeing it. So I have often moved on before it shows up. Your gratitude shows up in the chat box for me, but it's still there for us all to read and enjoy. So if you want to add a gratitude in there, feel free, and I will share one now. Grateful to be sitting with you all. Grateful to be able to have this connection. So I have a sharing for this morning. That story I shared at the beginning, the Tara Brach story, about the man bowing to what he was noticing, what was. That story and example has really been very alive for me in the last few days. Lots of exploring, what does that mean, moment by moment. So it really inspired some of these other thoughts and sharings. First thing that came up for me is, what does it actually mean to bow to something? And in particular, what does it mean to bow in a way that allows some calming, some clarity, some strengthening to naturally emerge, as it does in this story? When I look at the roots for the verb to bow, the word has long carried two very different meanings. One kind of bowing is a giving in, a collapsing under, a giving up, bowed down by the weight of things. That's not what we're talking about here. And it's not a kind of bowing that is very useful for our well-being. So we really want to turn the attention to a completely different meaning of that word, the kind that the man in the story was demonstrating. That side of the verb has reverence right in its meaning, which means to bring a certain kind of respect, an honoring. And this is really helpful, an awe to what is present in that moment. Anything that we're bowing to, being able to see it with an honoring of the mystery of life that's here. When reverence is offered skillfully, this is the wholeness of mindfulness. This is meeting any present moment, no matter what the conditions, with a wise mind, strong heart. In addition to reverence, there's another part of that word, which is actually bending, a bending with the conditions, but not just a bending. If you think about how we bow, our feet are rooted in the earth, connecting to the earth. There's a practice from Thich Nhat Hanh called touching the earth, which is all about a bowing that allows the greatest connection with the earth and honoring that reverence. So there is a bending that actually has roots down into a larger whole, a stronger possibility. This kind of bending, bowing, can be an action that absolutely implies both flexibility and strength. If you think about the strong, flexible bow that shoots an arrow really far, it's a flexibility and a balanced, skillful response to whatever is here. I found this lovely quote from Clarissa Pinkola Estes, talking about this meaning of rooted flexibility through the metaphor of trees, looking at the reality of trees, not just metaphorical. It is in the nature of saplings to quake in the winds, hesitant, learning to hold their own places. But the older trees, with their years of testing and being tested, they are the ones who, whether in the long stern winds or misty gales, sway the most. Thus a bouquet of tentative trembling first-time buds, now much more the leaf-perfumed hips of 100 wide women dancing. These old ones, regardless of form, sway by heart to the music that thunders through them. That's a powerful, powerful image of a strong rooted flexibility, a bowing and bending in order to better meet the moment. In order to keep from breaking is what is happening in that. And this is directly related to a powerful definition of being healthy. One definition, useful definition. So according to this definition of being healthy is the ability to continuously restore balance in face of its continual disruption. So bowing, it is a means of continuously restoring our balance, meeting a moment with flexibility, with reverence, with deep roots, in a way that allows us to come back to center again and again and again and again. This definition, interestingly, came from Antonovsky, who was a medical sociologist named Antonovsky, who did his work in Israel primarily in the 60s and 70s. I've quoted this before. If you want to read more, look up John Kabat-Zinn's Full Catastrophe Living, where he has a beautiful write-up of Antonovsky's work. So Antonovsky was interested in what allowed people to survive extreme stress. Medical sociologist in the 60s and 70s, he was interviewing Holocaust survivors. What he quickly found is that there were two groups of survivors. One group survived bodily, while mentally, emotionally, spiritually devastated. Other group, smaller group, but not an insignificant number. I don't remember the numbers. I'm thinking it was somewhere in the 30% range. So not a small group. It's not as small of a group as you might think. This group survived bodily and mentally, physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, even more connected with being alive, living this life well. That group fascinated him. He called what those people had a sense of coherence, and focused his research on them. What allowed that for them? He came up with that there were three components of sense of coherence: comprehensibility, manageability, meaningfulness. Again, if you've heard this before, what is it like to listen to it for how is it useful in my life right now? So I want to go through these three. Comprehensibility. The people he studied had an internal map of the world that allowed them to make sense out of both their internal and external situations. To me, this is key. How to not get lost in not comprehending, being befuddled, overwhelmed by bewilderment that what is happening is happening. We need some sort of map that allows us to make sense out of the conditions just as they are. And this is a key step that's often lost in our current times. Back when most people had some sort of religious connection, this map was a given. It was part of the societal fabric. Now that our adherence to religious traditions have drastically fallen away, there's a certain loss in how we spiritually understand ourselves and the world around us and our world's place in the universe. Definitely not a question our society in general puts a lot of stock in considering. But in difficult times, having this sense of a larger whole, a wholeness that's not disrupted by any of the present moment conditions, that's very powerful for helping to move through difficult times. So some questions for you to ponder with this. What is your map of the universe? Einstein said one of the most important questions that we have to ask ourselves was essentially the question of, do we see the universe as basically friendly or basically hostile? And if you see it in either way, what is the effect of that on your life and on how you directly manage things out of that perception? I once heard a minister describe a teaching from St. Augustine. And in this teaching, St. Augustine apparently wrote that there are many ways of reading scripture. One way to read scripture is to read it metaphorically. Another way is to read it literally. And to determine which approach was best, St. Augustine advocated what he called a doctrine of love. So what this meant was, if reading a text one way opened the reader to feeling more loving towards others and the world, that was a good way to read it. If instead reading it another way left one feeling more judgmental, more harsh, and more separated from others, then that was not a good way. Makes an interesting internal test for checking out our map of things. Does your map of the universe bring you greater sense of connection and wholeness, or greater sense of separation and anxiety? If your map is not so strong, how do you take the time to educate yourself and make it stronger? What might that education look like for you? Years ago, I did a program called a Master's in Earth Literacy, which was this beautiful program around understanding who we are, both from a scientific perspective, a humanities perspective, a spiritual perspective, a social science perspective, all of those ways, who we were in relationship to the earth, the universe, and around us. And there are remarkable teachings, scientifically grounded, that many of us haven't spent much time reading, that can be profoundly influential on how we understand the larger whole. And I just got a lovely reminder of this the other day when my daughter and I found a YouTube on the golden ratio and watched that. There are interesting, remarkable mysteries in how this universe functions that, again, our day-to-day society often leaves behind. So how do you educate yourself to make a map that's stronger for you, if useful? Second one, manageability. So the people in Antonovsky studies, they believed they had the internal resources to meet whatever happened to them. Here's a helpful question to consider. Do you believe that for yourself? Have you spent the time that it takes to develop that confidence in your own internal skillfulness? To know you have those resources that do make a difference in how you meet moment to moment, ever-changing life. If we don't have confidence in our own internal skills, this is a basic place we get overwhelmed, and we do it fast. And the beautiful thing is, if we're not feeling that confidence now, this is also absolutely something we can grow. So I know this in my own life, my own experience through engaging with mindfulness practices. I can tell you absolutely that my stress tolerance is remarkably different than it used to be. I'm really grateful to have some skillfulness with knowing how to calm an anxious mind when there. I have so much more to learn, but I'm grateful for a foundation that I know I can lean into. What's so lovely is that there's nothing particularly unique about me. This possibility is wired into all of us. I think of this as our birthright if we attend to it. Many, many, many people for eons have named this. And one, Thomas Merton, I love the way he said it. We have what we seek. We have it all the time. And if we give it time, it will make itself known. It makes itself known through this willingness to start with the moment, just as it is. Learn to be with this moment as it is, as opposed to all that anxious wishing for things to be different, and starting to meet it now. Lovely thing is, the more we do this, the easier it gets. This is a basic truth of the study of self-efficacy. There's an expression, your confidence in your ability to grow influences your ability to grow. So the more we start practicing, the more we taste and like own for ourselves even little teeny shifts that matter, then we start to grow in our confidence, and that helps grow this pattern, this learning edge, to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And kind of, I want to share one more quote. I think of this as one of the loveliest expressions of this willingness to grow, from the words of Martin Luther. Even if I knew that tomorrow the world would go to pieces, I would still plant my apple tree. The world we know is radically changing. So this is a good time to plant apple trees, growing wholesome fruit inside of each of us. So the last one, meaningfulness. Think of this absolutely as the keystone for all of them. For the people in Antonovsky's studies, they felt that the demands they faced were challenges in which they could directly find meaning and purpose, and to which they could commit themselves. Viktor Frankl said something very similar, from that same era, from his experience of the Holocaust. In essence, he witnessed that the people who survived well, were the ones who had a sense of a core meaning that the Nazis couldn't touch. That sense of how we find meaning in any moment really is what gives us basic strength and rootedness again and again. So, how do you allow your response to our current situation, or any situation, anytime, anything that we meet? How do we allow that to strengthen a sense of meaning and purpose in our lives? How do you let this response, whatever it is, connect you to the root of what you care most about? What kind of values? How do you allow that to connect you to values that you both want to embody and enact in the world? What are those values for you? What are particularly values that you can draw upon as a strength in challenging times? I really invite you to take some time to write this out for yourself, what you really care about, what the values are that you want to use, and then find some way to connect with that day by day, so that this is a practice that we get stronger in and supports us for here. So I just want to finish with 3 quotes from people who have done some expression of this value work for themselves, this finding meaning in a way that is useful for connecting to our resilience, to our well-being, to our being healthy and strong, no matter what the conditions are. First comes from Arthur Ashe, tennis player who retired and then made a life of remarkable service. From what we get, we can make a living. What we give, however, makes a life. Eric Schiffman. Love is what is left when we let go of everything we don't need. The last, Mary Oliver. My work is loving the world. So let's sit for a minute. Thank you. In just a moment, I'm going to put that link into the chat box. Maybe I'll work on that right now. Let's see. There it is. Oh, and then, so there's the link if you want to join in the Zoom room following this for a meet and greet, a little more discussion. It's been kind of sweet to meet in that way as well. If you are feeling complete, know that I am sending good wishes to you um, um, in challenging times and wishes of compassion and well-being for all of us everywhere. Thank you.